As ICE continues ramping up nationwide, so are concerns about the legality of these operations. Those concerns rose even higher yesterday. We know when agents arrested journalist Don Lemon. Police say earlier this month, Lemon was recording an anti-ICE protest that disrupted a Minnesota church that was in St. Paul. He currently faces federal charges of interfering with the First Amendment. We know this morning we brought in an expert to shed light on that subject. Our political analyst Anita Manion is with us in studio. Thanks so much for joining us, Anita. Of course, you know, there's a lot of tension here kind of ramping up across the country and in our local area, as you can see, right? So from a political standpoint, what stood out to you this week and what did you see?
Well, I think this is one of those situations, like so many things right now, that's almost like a Rorschach test of, you know, kind of where you stand.
Yeah.
So for some people, they saw a journalist arrested, and that really evoked fears of them, of, you know, the press being stifled, and particularly critics of President Trump and his administration being stifled. For folks on the other side, they might have fears evoked of, you know, their Christian right to worship being disrupted, and they see that as a problem that the left is causing. So I think whichever side you're on, you see something to be angry about here.
Sure. Now, you know, this isn't the first scenario where we've seen journalists arrested or even detained. What kinds of concerns does this raise for the freedom of the press here?
It is actually very unusual for journalists to be arrested in the United States. And I think if you look back even at what happened on January 6th, and we saw lots of footage from journalists who were in the Capitol covering that. Yes, it's illegal to trespass into the Capitol, but they weren't charged with that because they were there doing their job and exercising their First Amendment rights. So this is very unusual to have a journalist who's covering a protest be arrested under these laws.
Absolutely. So, of course, much of the media that we've seen come out from these journalists, many of them have filmed as they've been arrested or detained or as they're approached by agents. So how do situations like this, Anita, shape public trust in institutions, especially when immigration enforcement and First Amendment protections intersect?
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing, you know, public trust in institutions erode. And we know that's true whether it's government or the media, and these sorts of clashes sort of undermine that. People think, I can't trust anyone because, you know, everyone's to blame. And I think that that's disheartening. It's not good for our democracy because journalists, the fourth estate, provides a very crucial role in providing transparency, documenting what's happening, and holding powerful people and institutions to account.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, you know, I kind of thought twice about making sure that I carry my press pass everywhere I go at this point.
I think the chilling effect is intentional.
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, these incidents are going to influence how we do our jobs.
That's right. And it's not happening in a bubble, right?
Right.
The president has called the press the enemy of the people. You know, just recently a Washington Post reporter's home was raided and her devices were taken, which is also a very unusual measure.
Yeah, now how might policymakers respond to this? Seeing journalists sort of, you know, in this moment, having to change the way they gather.
Yeah, I think that, you know, one thing that they could look at is this FACE Act that's being used to charge Mr. Lemon. But I think really that it will probably be more about the discourse rather than an actual law being changed. But I think that it's important for people to speak out about the importance of the freedom of the press and the role that they play in our democracy.
Now let's talk a little bit about ICE. How would you say it's changed from administration to administration?
So since 2003, their budget has steadily grown over time, but the last several years it's been more like $10 billion. But with the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill last year, ICE got an additional $75 billion, which makes it basically the most well-funded law enforcement organization. And what they've done with that money, in addition to building detention centers and providing sign-on bonuses, is in 1 year they more than doubled their workforce.
Wow.
And so for some people, again, they say that's great, we need more border control. But for others, they say that's part of the problem, just rapidly putting people in who haven't had the proper training, and that's why we're seeing some of the problems we're seeing. It's also very unusual for ICE to be in the interior of the country. Usually they're at the border. So this is really where we're seeing the pushback, is having thousands of federal agents in an urban city. And they're saying, this is what local law enforcement is supposed to be. We shouldn't have border patrol in our cities.
Anita, you've been a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for weighing in on this. It's super critical, and we always appreciate having your perspective on things.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.